Okay, I am live with a guest. Bubba. Bubba is going to his forever home tomorrow. Bubba was born outside to a feral mother, and as you can see, he's not so feral. He's been in the house for the last few days, friendly as can be, and he's going to a forever home soon. He's very friendly. He wanted attention. He does not let me not give him attention. So we have a guest. Tonight is the bend framework. Um, I'm gonna try not to be too babbly, but we know Gwen's mind goes ding 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 ding. So we're just gonna kind of go with it, and I will drop those awesome soft snippets on you here and there, and the replay will be available in perpetuity, or at least until as long as YouTube exists. Okay, I'm gonna put you down. So to keep things a little bit coherent to start off, I made some notes in my notebook today. No pretty stickers on that page. I did have pretty stickers yesterday, but okay. So I'm gonna read this to you. Who's that behind us? Oh, that's straight. Where's that chicken? No, that's chicken shit. All right. So a little intro to the Bend framework here. I used to be an LOA adherent, LOA law of attraction. Vision boards, the affirmations, and even the hopeless eternal positivity. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it did work, but only ever in superficial ways that provided only shallow satisfaction with no deep transformation. I'm such a good writer. Write scripts for everything, but that gets boring. I could manifest stuff. Like, I was really, really good at manifesting stuff. People around me really kind of knew me for random checks would show up in the mail. Random refunds from companies that I hadn't requested a refund from would show up. I get lots and lots of free stuff. Lots of free stuff. But ultimately, my life stayed the same. Wanted something different and wanted something more, and the law of attraction wasn't really providing it for me. It wasn't improving my life in any real tangible way. And it looks like I have to close the window because the neighbor across the street is starting his semi. So this stuff that I manifested through the law of attraction technique manifested the profound toxicity that was present in my life at the time. And it did nothing to help me exit the places and situations that enabled and generated that toxicity. And I've talked about that before. I lived in Narcissist Central for many years, from like 2010 to 2017. I was back and forth between Narcissist Central and Friends Basement. It was not in good places. And this is where I began to explore how expectations. So law of attraction is focused on our desires. What do we want? And if you're the idea that you always get what you want. So whatever you're getting, even if it's bad, you wanted it. It's a really gross, toxic, victim-blaming sort of ideology, but it sounds good. It can sound good anyway. It creates an illusion of control, that we have control of things that we don't really have control over. And that can be helpful to some people, but for most people it's really bypassy and doesn't get to the core of the issues and doesn't actually provide real life transformation. Okay, so remember, desires. Law of attraction is about desires. And this is where I began to explore how expectations affect the shaping of our lives. Briefly called it the law of expectation and posited it as a correlation to the law of attraction. Could probably find some of my writings from back in the day if I really dug, but maybe not. Things go up and down. But the idea was that you had the law of attraction, but that was modified by the law of expectation. That you get what exists in the space where your expectations and your desires overlap. And exploring what I desired versus what I expected led to major breakthroughs, which unlocked intense personal transformation over the next few years. And life did get better, but then I plateaued and it eventually stalled completely. So I had to explore. I am by nature a problem solver. So if I get stuck, I might whine a little bit about it, but I'm going to be figuring out, why am I stuck? What caused this? How can I get unstuck? And also, how can I prevent myself from getting stuck in that particular way in the future? I've learned that you cannot completely prevent yourself from getting stuck. Shit happens. But what you can do is learn to prevent yourself from getting stuck in the same way over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Okay? So, where was I? I found the key to restarting the transformation and exploring my needs, which are connected to but separate from desires. So then we go from the law of attraction to the law of expectation, and then further disillusionment from the law of attraction, the sort of ideal, and shifting it to looking at desires and expectations, and then we're adding a need, and that's where you get to the psychic bitch slap. If you've been around with me since 2015, then obviously you know about the psychic bitch slap. That led to bitch slap journaling. So then it's really super powerful. Like, it's 2015 where that needs piece clicked in for me, and I laid out the cards. This is what I want, and I chose that one consciously, face up, that this is what I want. And then I laid, this is what I need, and this is what I expect. The bitch that was in the expectations. I expected somebody to rescue me. Ugh, fuck that shit. Fuck that noise. Now, in our society, we're taught to minimize our needs, especially those of us who are assigned female at birth and conditioned as girls. We're taught to minimize our needs and to focus all of our efforts on making sure the needs of others are met before we even worry about our own. The spouse and the kids get a plate before we get to eat. And this isn't necessarily a horrible thing in moderation, but it can very quickly become being a doormat. So then, again, adding needs, this exploration of the intersection between desires, needs, and expectations led to more breakthroughs and transformation in my life. From 2015, when I developed the Psychic Bitch Slap, to 2017, when I wrote Bitch Slap Journaling, and 2017 was when I moved in here. Bitch Slap Journaling sort of like kickstarted a bunch of shit, like holy shit. But again, eventually plateaued and stalled. The next key, boundaries. I'm still working on those. I'm still experiencing transformation through that work, and I am certain that I will plateau again someday. I'm equally certain that I will find more keys to unlocking more transformation. Okay, so almost done with the notes, and then we're going to get to the babbly stuff. How does all of this apply to magic? Because, like, my whole stick is magic. I'm a witch. I do magic. I do sorcery, and I'm working on learning how to teach y'all how to do sorcery. Not necessarily specifically the way that I do this, the way I do it, but finding your ways of doing magic. So how does all this apply to magic? It sounds like a lot of psychology. Boundaries, needs, desires, expectations, psychology. Well, the truth is magic is all in our heads. That's where it starts anyway. The Bend framework helps us to identify the gaps in our ability to enact our will in the world. Without clarity around the Bend, without clarity around our boundaries, our expectations, our needs, and our desires, our magic and our lives go to shit. Okay, so now we're at the stage we're going to break those down and talk about what boundaries are, what expectations are, what needs are, what desires are, ways that you can work with this framework and use it to identify where you have weak points in your life, where you're prone to self-sabotage, where you're prone to perhaps lash out at others, where you're prone to being drained, where you're prone to setting yourself up for disappointment. Um, so, all right, let's start with, we're going to kind of go, the BEND framework, the BEND, kind of goes backwards from the way that I discovered it. So we're going to go DNEB, but DNEB isn't as cool of an acronym as BEND. Desires. What do you want? What do you want in your life? Vision mapping is all about what you want in your life. What do you want your life to be like? That's what it is. Is it? What do I want? D. It's at the end because it's the end goal. And we focus on the end because you gotta know where you're going to map out the journey to get there. Even if it's going to be a wandering sort of journey, you still got to go in a direction. And the D, the desire, points you in a direction. This is what do you want? Those are your desires. Now, we need to go a little bit deeper, though. A little bit deeper than just your desires. Where are these desires coming from? Are these healthy desires or are these toxic desires? If I want to snort a bunch of cocaine, that's probably not a healthy desire. It's probably not a good idea, particularly since I know what happens when I have done it before, which was just once, and I will never do it again. I'm good with the marijuana. Thank you very much. Vape pens for the win. So what do you want? We can often be conditioned to desire things that aren't good for us, to think that we're desiring things. And often what we do is, actually all the time, this is always, desires are deeply and intimately connected with needs. We desire something because we think it will fulfill a need. Okay, so I'm hungry, and the need that desire will fill. I wanted Taco Bell earlier. Taco Bell was a desire. I didn't specifically need Taco Bell, but I was hungry, and I wanted to have Taco Bell to fill that hunger. I had the desire, fills the need. Okay, so hopefully I'm making sense. So our desires are connected to our needs, but they are not. Our desire is not our need, and a need is not our desire. They are two separate things, though they are connected. Okay, so a need is a gap. It's a hole. It's an emptiness. The root of the word is ancient Norse, is ancient Germanic, and need meant it was an emptiness. It was a lack. Need is lack. And law of attraction teachers a lot will talk about this abundance versus lack mindset. And they're kind of almost there, but they zoom by it, they bypass it. We all have needs. To deny our needs is to create a very unhealthy environment for ourselves, and yet we're taught to deny our needs over and over and over again. To often we will desire something that has temporarily met a need, but that doesn't mean it meets the need in a good way. When addiction is desiring something that fulfills an emotional need, a psychological need, but that also has toxic negative side effects. So it's meeting a need. A lot of chemical addiction is about meeting a need for regulating brain chemicals, but it also comes with toxic side effects. So those needs could possibly be met in better ways. And we don't even have to talk about drug use. We can talk about relationships. How often have you found yourself lonely? There's that lack, that need. That need is companionship. That need is connection. That need is intimacy. That need is closeness. That need is partnership. That need might be help. There's any number of needs that a relationship with that someone else can meet for you that you can't meet for yourself. This is something that you have to accept about needs, is that you're not going to be able to meet all of your needs by yourself. We're interdependent, co-regulating creatures. Now, some of us might have social needs that are less intense than others. Some of us might be perfectly okay with being a hermit, spending the rest of our lives alone with ourselves, because I know that most of you are not. So understanding what your relationship needs are is important, and understanding what your body needs are is important. And needs and desires are sort of a circular thing that you're working through. You explore your desire, you explore what need that desire is meeting, then you explore if there's anything that could meet that need in a better, in a healthier way, in a way that's more aligned with you, that's more in tune with you, and with who you want to be with your future self. And it's a continuous and constant sort of exploration. And as you can see, Bubba's is back. We're blessed with a black kitty. He's a sweetheart. He's such a sweetheart. He is one of my feral successes. So this, with all of this bad framework, each aspect is going to inform the others. So you're going to look at, and I'm going to mention Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's not perfect. It's seriously flawed. It's useful. It was also cribbed from Blackfeet teachings. So I definitely encourage you to Google the Blackfeet teachings and the relationship to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But it's useful to look at those, that pyramid, and it's not, we look at a hierarchy and we think that it means the stuff at the top is more important than the stuff at the bottom. So if the stuff at the bottom gets cast to the side, then okay, that's just fine. Well, or the reverse of that, we think these base survival needs, as long as I'm living, I'm okay. And ignore those higher needs. Maybe we've been hurt so much that we're ignoring our relationship needs. Maybe we have been put down so many times that we're ignoring our aspirational or achievement needs. Maybe we're ignoring our creativity needs. There's numerous ways. And while ignoring those higher level needs isn't going to kill your body like starving yourself or denying yourself water or sleep might do, ignoring those higher level needs kills your spirit. Now, you can, when I say spirit, you can think of some supernatural divine thing like your soul, or you can just think of yourself, of who you are. That's your spirit. That part of you that is in your body but not your body. If my hand gets chopped off, I'm still Gwen. And so if Gwen's higher level needs are not being met, then Gwen shrinks and becomes someone else. Still named Gwen, but a different version. So it's important not to ignore those higher level needs. How often are you pushing off creativity because you're so busy co-regulating with other people and meeting their needs? So you're pushing off your needs in order to meet theirs. And again, this is not necessarily always a bad thing, particularly if we're parents. But when we're starting to push off our own needs in the service of other adults who should be capable of taking care of those needs themselves, but are choosing not to because you continue to allow yourself to push those needs aside. And guess what that is? That's boundaries. They're all sort of interconnected. When your needs needs are not getting met, either because someone is actively impeding you from having your needs met. Oppressive systems will actively impede us from having our needs met. And that is a boundary violation that is not easy to solve, but it is still a boundary violation. It is a systemic issue. It still violates our boundaries. And it can still make us very, very angry. Or because you just haven't been enforcing boundaries because you're not clear on your boundaries. You've let things slide for so long that it just blew up and you don't know what the fuck happened. Okay, so we need to be looking at what we need in all aspects of our lives. And we also need to be looking at what our future self needs. I posted today's Money Magic post, and I said, I don't necessarily need a permaculture design certificate. I don't. I'm not going to die without it. My business is probably not going to fail without it either. I have a totally different business model than the standard. I work on a donation pay what you can basis, right? So my business isn't going to fail if I don't get the permaculture design certificate. But my future self has turned the Hermitage into a functional microfarm where I'm producing at least 80% of my own food, and it's sustainable from year to year to year. And that permaculture design course that I want to take is a mentored permaculture design course where a professional permaculturist will do from via distance. We don't do it in person, but they will review your design plans and your pictures and all your information and guide you, make suggestions of, okay, I see this is what you want to do here, but maybe this would be better. And so having that support will help me to become the future version of myself that I'm focusing on with this vision mapping process that I am working on basically through the end of the year. I'm literally spending the rest of the year vision mapping the rest of my life. Well, okay, not the rest of my life. It's like a 5-year plan. And it feels amazing that I can do that, let me tell you. It has been some work getting to the point where I could sit here and I could say financially, I could take the rest of the year to create my vision for the next 5 years, and I will be fine. Oh, it feels so good. And that's because of the previous vision mapping work that I did and all the work that I did on my desires and my needs and my expectations and even my boundaries. Okay, so we need to be looking at our own needs. We need to be looking at the needs of our future self, and we also need to be looking at the needs of our home and the needs of our family, and make sure that we're not overextending ourselves in meeting the needs of our home, making sure that it's a balanced sort of relationship. And that's where the boundaries come in. So our boundaries are what distinguish us from the world. My boundary is my limit. This is not allowed in my space. This is not allowed around me. I can't dictate what people are doing outside of my home. I can't dictate what people are doing to other people. I can make commentary. I can be judgmental, but I can't control it at all. Like, I can't make someone be a better person, because believe me, if I could, I'd be bippity, boppity, booping all the motherfuckers. Be a better person, be a better person, be a better person, be a better person. It was only that easy. I need to get a little. Okay. So again, our boundaries are that what distinguish us from others. They kind of shape who we are. And anger is a signal that your boundaries have been violated. You might be really good at suppressing anger, but if you blow up or you find yourself irritable for no reason, there's a good chance there's some boundary violations going on there. Not always. Anxiety can cause irritability as well. Anxiety is related more to expectations than to boundaries, but there's some boundary issues with anxiety too. And I speak of this from experience and from lots and lots of study, because that's what I do all day long, because I've set my life up so that I can do that. kind of live my life. Like, there's some shit stuff I'm dealing with, but it is in the process of exiting my life, so I'm being patient and using it while it's here. Okay, so your boundaries are not going to be the same as other people's boundaries. What's okay with you might not be okay with somebody else. What's okay with somebody else might not be okay with you, and that's okay. Boundaries are about comfort and they are about safety. It's okay if you allow your boundaries to be pushed a little bit, because that's one way to know if this is a boundary or if this is an unreasonable expectation. We will often mistake boundaries for expectations and vice versa. Like, I expect so-and-so to always treat me in such a way, and we think that that's the boundary. Well, the boundary is that you don't want to be treated in certain ways. Now, you can't make so-and-so treat you that way. What you can do is not accept other treatment. Does that make sense? I don't know. You can't make Trump stop being an asshole. So expecting him to stop being an asshole is unreasonable. But we as a country could have set boundaries about what he could do. We have not. We as a country have not set boundaries about what Trump can and can't do. We as a country are shitty at boundaries, and narcissists are masters at pinpointing people who are shitty at boundaries. And it's not that they look for you specifically, it's that they test everybody. So, and these are not just narcissists, boundary pushers in general. There's lots of different kinds of boundary pushers. Boundary pushers aren't going to target you specifically. This is one of the things where the law of attraction really just always sat wrong with me. Because if the law of attraction, and you attract what you are, or you attract your vibe, or you attract what you want, or whatever it is, then that means people who attract narcissists specifically attract narcissists. And the truth is, they don't. Narcissists aren't really attracted to anything but suckers. And again, they will test everyone. And then they'll make you feel special. Trump has tested all of us again and again and again. And he makes his base feel special. So, yeah. Okay? So, boundaries. They're what you allow in your energy and what you reject from your energy. They don't just apply to between you and the other people. You got to have boundaries with yourself. Well, I'm shit about this. I'm seriously lacking on self-boundaries. Really sloppy all over the place on self-boundaries. You got to work on that. Self-boundaries, another word for that would be self-discipline. I posted on Facebook today another post about anchoring versus grounding and how it's important to make sure that the metaphors that we're using work with our subconscious mind instead of being rejected from our subconscious mind. And my subconscious mind doesn't like grounding because I was grounded a lot as a child and teenager, and fuck that. But anchoring works for me. It works really well for me. So I anchor myself in many different ways. Well, the same is true of boundaries versus discipline. Discipline has taken on negative connotations. Discipline has become punishment. Instead of shaping of the self, it has become punishment. Well, it's easier to just come up with a new metaphor than it is to rewrite an old one. So, boundaries. We don't have self-discipline. We have self-boundaries. One of the reasons I do self-hexes is because hexes are all about boundaries. And so self-hexes are about making yourself clear on where your boundaries are. If you keep self-sabotaging yourself, part of that is boundaries. If you feel like someone else is interfering with what it is that you want to do, that's an issue with boundaries. Now, this does not mean it's easy to extract yourself from that situation. It might very well be that it has to be a very slow and gradual process of pushing your boundaries further and further out, particularly if you are talking about unstable people in your life who are severe boundary pushers, who are toxic boundary pushers. Like toddlers will push your boundaries, but they're not doing it to be assholes. They're doing it because that's part of what toddlers do. Teenagers will push your boundaries because, again, they're not doing it to be assholes. They're doing it because that's what teenagers do. It's part of figuring their own boundaries, what is and isn't acceptable for themselves. And it can be dangerous to extract yourself from those relationships. So a gradual building up of boundaries might be necessary. And even if it's not dangerous to extract yourself from such a situation, you might just need a gradual building up of boundaries because you feel weak, because you don't know how to do boundaries, because you don't know what your boundaries are, and you need to figure all of that out. And the truth is, it's really hard to figure out what your boundaries are if you're not in a relationship. So there's this sort of catch-22. You almost have to go through a shitty relationship to figure out boundaries if you weren't taught boundaries as a child. Like, it kind of sucks, but that's just kind of the way of things. Blame it on the systems that have conditioned us into toxic lifestyles. Okay, so expectations. Now, boundaries are something you want to build. Boundaries are something you want to get super clear on and that you want to improve. Expectations, you want to get super clear on them so you can get rid of them. You want to clear your expectations as much as possible. And while you are clearing them, manage the ones that you still have so that they are reasonable. And you're not going to freak out and melt down when your expectations aren't met. Okay? Expectations go deep to our emotional core. And they're a control issue. Oh, my guides hound on me that I'm a control freak. I am, but fuck them. I love my guides, but fuck them. Okay, so expectations are a control issue. We create plans based on what we expect to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, we get thrown off. We have to reorient. And that reorientation, depending on how severely we got thrown off, can take some time. An expectation is an attachment to a particular outcome. We can have expectations on other people. And again, that's an attempt to control something that we can't control. I expect that person to do such and such, and so if they don't do such and such, I'm going to be disappointed. They might feel bad about your disappointment, but ultimately your disappointment only hurts you. Your expectations affect your behavior tremendously. This is why the bitch slap is often in the expectation. Because if you expect somebody to rescue you, you're not going to rescue yourself. If you expect someone to do something, you're going to plan accordingly. Now, removing our expectations doesn't mean we don't depend on people. What it means is we're able to adapt. We're able to adjust. When so-and-so doesn't follow through, we have our boundary that says when a person betrays me, they don't get another chance. But we also don't get upset about it. It is what it is. We pivot, we adjust, we problem solve, and we move on. When we have an expectation, we get locked into a certain way. And then when that certain way doesn't happen, we get stuck. So then as we're clearing the expectations, things get easier. Things start to transform. Another way that we use expectations to self-sabotage is that we expect the unrealistic. We expect the playboy to stop being a playboy. We expect the player to stop playing us. We expect the cheater to stop cheating. We expect the boss to suddenly notice the work that we do. We expect our children to suddenly start behaving themselves in a totally different way without changing the way that we respond to them. We expect our spouses to make changes without changing the way that we respond to them or understanding why they're doing what they're doing or realizing that our boundaries are shit. They're going to continue to violate them and we need to make the decision to cut the cord. So our expectations can lead us to self-sabotage like a motherfucker. So that's your bend framework is boundaries. You got to get really clear on your boundaries, and strengthen them. This isn't building walls so that no one can ever get close to you again. But this is knowing what is and is not acceptable in your life, what you are and are not willing to do, and making sure those boundaries align with who you really are, with your values, with your goals, and with your needs. Expectations, being really clear on what you expect in a situation and doing your best to clear those expectations. But if you can't clear expectations, because an expectation is an attachment, and attachments are hard to get rid of, if you need some sort of attachment, finding a healthier, more realistic attachment. Okay? And getting really super clear on your needs, really clear on your needs, and not minimizing your needs, not making fun of your needs. If you need pink glittery fingernails to feel good, then it's okay to have pink glittery fingernails. Don't let other people minimize your needs. Don't let other people mock your needs. Now, that does not mean stomp all over people in meeting your needs. Don't become one of the boundary pushers. Don't become one of the manipulative people. But be super clear. When your needs aren't getting met, figure out where it's you allowing your boundaries to be violated, where it's you being a people pleaser and setting aside your needs for others, versus when it's systemic issues impacting the way that you get your needs met. And then desires. What do you want? What do you want in your life? And then it circles right back. Once you figure out what you want in your life, what do you need in order to get that? What are your expectations? If you expect not to get what you want, you're not even going to chase it. Oh, yeah, it would be nice to do that. I'd like to do that. I want to do that. But it's never going to happen. That's an expectation. It's never going to happen. And so you act accordingly. In the case of it's never going to happen, so why bother? Okay, so it's all a very circular thing. Boundaries connect to needs, boundaries connect to desires, expectations connect to boundaries and needs and desires. It's all interconnected. Okay, so this Thursday workshop is going to be a weekly thing. The hope is that I will get better at this, that by teaching this material and forcing myself to have to make notes about the material before the workshop, that I will get clearer about it. I will get better at teaching it because, like, it's like this gorgeous, beautiful, glorious thing in my head, but that does not translate well out of my head, and I'm working on that. I know that it transformed my life. I've gone from, in 2013, living in a house with 3 Capricorn narcissists, broke all the time, massively in debt to the guy that I was renting a bedroom from. It was not a great life. I was miserable. I'd been betrayed by someone who I had trusted. It was just a mess. Went from that to, in 2017, moving here. Wasn't sure if this was going to be a permanent place or if this was going to be a stop-off to something else. I was kind of split between the two visions. Am I going to stay here? Or am I going to go travel? And then I got really sick in 2018, and I ended up with a bunch of cats, and so that kind of made it be, I guess we're staying here, and now I've almost closed on the house. Yay! So, I know my shit works. I'm just figuring out how to teach that shit. All right, love y'all. Bye-bye.